Good afternoon and welcome to the third and final part of our Make Your Idea Happen Summer 2017 series. Thanks so much for staying with us and joining us in this third session. Today we are joined by my colleague Bertie, who's one of the coaches here at Crowdfunder, and we're also joined by Julia, who's the co-founder at the Sustainable Studio. So first of all, just so we can get a bit of an idea as to what the Sustainable Studio is all about, Julia, would you mind giving us a little bit of an intro?
Yeah, sure. We set up the studio as a kind of co-work maker space. There was a real need in Cardiff for co-work spaces, but those kind of more messy spaces where you can kind of shut the door and come back the next day. So we kind of hope, the last year that we've built kind of a supportive environment for those kind of people just to thrive and build their kind of creative businesses or their practices alongside a community, like-minded people, I guess. Yeah, so that's kind of us in a nutshell.
Awesome, thanks so much. So in the last two sessions, first of all, we're looking at planning your project. So all the things around figuring out who your crowd's going to be and how you find them. In the session last week, we looked at creating the perfect project page, and we did a lot of work on thinking about telling your story and rewards. So if you did miss those two, have a look on the channel on YouTube and you can catch up on those. Today, of course, more specifically, we are focusing on running your project. So getting the money in the door, getting the pledges and the support for your project. And we're going to be specifically focusing on the most effective channels for driving support. So do stay tuned. So I just want to point out as well that we do have a fully comprehensive guide online. So anything that we don't mention today, and there'll be quite a lot of things to do with promoting your project that we're not going to talk about, you can download them either from the Eventbrite page where you've signed up or from the Crowdfunder website, and that will take you right the way through everything that you need. And of course, you're not going to be on your own. Right the way through, we're going to stay in touch, and you can always get in touch with us via the usual channels on the website if you have any questions or you need any one-to-one help with your project specifically. So when it comes to crowdfunding, getting off to a good start is really key. I think nobody ever wants to see a project sat on £0 raised for any amount of time. And I know that launch day can be both exciting but also potentially quite nerve-wracking as well. So Julia, do you remember your project's launch day?
Yeah, I think it was funny because I think a few days before we were launching, we were like, oh my goodness, we need to do an event. We haven't organised one. So obviously that's pretty key. So anyone kind of launching their crowdfunder, definitely do a launch event. And I think ours, to be honest, it was pretty kind of intimate. It was lots of kind of family and friends, those people that have kind of been on a journey with us for the last maybe 8 to 10 years. And, and it's exciting, but I think just nerve-wracking. Because I think it's just kind of, it's something that we've never done before. And so, you never quite know how it's going to go. But I think have your friends, your family around you, and those people that, that are going to pledge first. So as you kind of launch, you've got some pledges coming in almost straight away. So definitely do one.
Fantastic. I think that's really great advice. And of course, one of the best ways to try and calm those nerves a little bit, and I know this is something that I do a lot of, is making sure that you have a plan. If you feel like you and everyone involved, everyone in your team knows what they're doing, that can help to keep the calm on that very exciting first day. So thinking about that then, some of the crowdfunding fundamentals, the strategies. So Bertie, I'm going to hand over to you. What are the key things that people need to think about?
Hi everyone. Yes, so for me the most important thing is to have a succinct plan before going live for your crowdfunding campaign. So you have a really good understanding of what your audience size is and the different groups that live within it, and what your strategy is going to be to approach each of those different groups. If you can do all of this planning beforehand, and therefore have a really good understanding of where the money is going to come from and what levers you need to pull to get there, you'll be so much more confident going into your project, and as a result your campaign will be sure to be much more successful. So the fundamentals for any project, big or small, I would certainly recommend before going live, lining up that first 10%. So you really know where that first bit of money is going to come from, and you've got a plan immediately to get off zero. And that comes into play really with your strategy, working through the different circles and spheres of influence through your network map. And we always say that you should start from the middle and work your way out. So the first people that should hear about your project should be those closest to you, that you have a direct connection with. So friends, family, colleagues, neighbors, so that as Julia mentioned, when that live date goes, you can guarantee that you've got some pledges onto the page. And the general crowdfunding behavior that we see is that once you're able to move away from that core network into wider audiences, people who are less familiar with your project will feel so much more comfortable pledging on it. They see that there's a decent amount raised on there, because it adds a bit of credibility behind the project. And there certainly is a bit of herd mentality when it comes to crowdfunding, where people will want to see a percentage raised before they pledge. And furthermore, when you're thinking about your communications, make sure that you understand a line really between what's seen as spammy and what's kind of articulated well and purposeful and relevant. So try and get the balance right in your plan and understand what kind of emails you're sending out, what kind of posts that you're doing. The more personable you can be, the more human the project will look, and the easier that people will warm to you and try and get on board with what you're doing. And when you're looking at your network map, think about all of those different groups within your audience and tailor your pitch to them accordingly. So work with what's interesting to them and what should be the best channel of communication to reach them. Is it that you should pick up the phone? Should you send them an email? Or should you contact them via social media? So structure your communications accordingly. So, of course, there are busy days and there are quiet days in crowdfunding. This actually might look familiar to you, Julia. This is actually your pledging list. And this is, you can find all of these figures and facts on your dashboard. And as you can see here, there's often a peak at the beginning and a peak at the end. And traditionally, there's quite a challenging period in the middle where you might experience a bit of a plateau. So bearing in mind that you know that that's possible, make a plan for it to preempt that kind of situation. So think about what content, what activations you can do to challenge that preconception that's going to happen. So in that middle period, you can maintain your momentum and keep people interested in your projects and ultimately pledging on your project as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Bertie. I think that's really true, that every single project will face some challenges as they go through their funding period. As I say, we usually see kind of a U shape in that graph, where they get a lot of pledges at the start, a lot at the end. And of course, it's going to be almost impossible to turn that graph into one massive high peak of every day being a great pledging day. I think, let's be realistic. But what we can do is try and make it kind of this shape. So it goes up and down, up and down. And what actually we can see really clearly is that you guys, Julia, did a great job of reigniting that flame and keeping that momentum in what otherwise would be quite a flat period in the middle. That actually you did keep things going. I can see that's Easter weekend as well. So well done you for that. So what kind of challenges did you have, and how did you keep that positive energy and momentum going?
Hi guys. Yeah, I think you know, it's probably the most vulnerable thing I've ever done, doing a crowdfunding campaign. I'm sure everyone will go through those kind of, that emotional roller coaster that we did. But, you know, I think one thing that I think was fundamental for us was having a good friend, actually. He was about to go freelance as, you know, in terms of like PR and comms. Amina, I will mention her name because she's absolutely lush. And she kind of, you know, almost kind of came on board without being asked and kind of said, look, guys, can I help in any way? And so we just kind of gave her all our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram passwords, and she just, you know, literally did not put her phone down for about a month, and was always kind of there to kind of ready to record like a Facebook Live thing or an Instagram pic. And that really, I think it really helped, because I think the workload of actually doing crowdfunding, although it can be quite overwhelming, you know, and good fun, I think it is a lot of work. I think you've just got to be on the ball and giving, you know, people, your potential kind of funders and backers, you know, something to kind of, you know, bite-sized chunk, something to grab hold of every day. And it was a good way of just motivating people to pledge, really, you know, informing them of like totals that were kind of, and targets that we wanted to reach for that, maybe that week, incentives to get people involved and stay and keep that interest going. And just updating the crowdfund, you know, the people that pledged already. I think that was really kind of an important part of doing the campaign. And you know, and it was quite, I think the biggest thing, you know, and why we saw that kind of dip in the middle, you know, our building, where our project, where we're crowdfunding for, it's up for redevelopment. I think a lot of kind of people in Cardiff know that, and so they were like, kind of, you know, why do we want to pledge to a project that is possibly not going to be there in a couple of years' time? But I think, you know, we actually invited those people down, you know, to kind of see the heart and the vision of our project. We just, I think we were very kind of open and transparent. I think that really helps when people are asking questions, be as truthful and as honest as you possibly can. You know, and I think then those people, once we kind of turned them around, you know, not only did they kind of share our crowdfunder pledge on their Twitter, which, you know, had very kind of significant numbers of followers, you know, we've actually got pledges through those people then. So I think it's about, being open and honest, you know, not kind of getting down when you kind of get some negativity, but keep pushing through and keep kind of, you know, a good team around you, just friends and family, you know, who can just be there to kind of encourage you. I think that's really important to get that team. And and I think it's about just getting people to capture the vision and the heart of what you want to do in your project or your community. And you know, it was really embarrassing doing those like Facebook Live things, because, you know, but you need to do them. There's like, I think you just got to get over that, and just people want to see those kind of silly moments, you know, and those embarrassing moments too, and see you working behind the scenes, like getting stuff done, you know, because at the end of the day, they're giving their money whether they know you or not. So I think just keep people up to date as much as you can.
I think that's so true. And of course, you know, what you've touched on there is what we were talking about, you know, Betty was talking about just a moment ago about being very personable. You know, we're all real human beings. We shouldn't need to hide that. People want to kind of see who you are and see that personality behind, you know, yourselves, but also kind of your projects as well. And of course, in terms of the time and the effort that it takes to run a crowdfunding project, it's all very proportionate. If you're just trying to raise £500, it's going to be a very different amount of time and effort if you're trying to raise £500,000. So do bear that in mind, of course, when you're thinking about, you know, your project and what do we need to do. It will depend on what it is that you're trying to achieve with that, of course. That's gonna play a part. So we're gonna focus now really specifically on two of the most effective channels for pretty much most projects on Crowdfunder. These two channels, email and social media, account for around about of 80% of pledges across the platform. So if we really sort of focus on these for just a moment, this is really going to help in terms of how you can most efficiently and effectively spend your time. So Julia, for you guys at the Sustainable Studio, how did you use these tools?
Yeah, I think, you know, Facebook was really good because obviously I think now, you can do the Facebook Live thing. But most of all, because I think if you've obviously got a group of friends that know about your project, they can share it really easily. And then obviously if they've got friends of friends. It's just so quick for people to just share and make a comment. You know, I'm supporting this, and I think obviously you've got links as well that people can share on the social media, and that was really great for us because it meant that, you know, it wasn't just kind of maybe 500-600 people seeing our Facebook Live videos. Actually, it went into kind of 1,500 to 2,000 people seeing those Facebook Lives. So I think it did really make the difference with people able to share it so easily. But then email, you know, it worked for us, I think, because it was about getting those more kind of substantial pledges in. It was about personal emails to people that maybe, you know, with people that we've maybe known for 8 to 10 years, that have kind of kept an eye on what we're doing and maybe not up to date with you know, the latest project. And so we kind of say, look, this is what we're up to at the minute, this is what we're trying to do, and, you know, it'd be great if you can come down and take a look. And then, you know, or even just people were like, oh yeah, I love it, I'm gonna give this much. And some pledges were really out of the blue, which was fantastic, from those people that you would never expect from, you know. And then obviously you've got, you know, the kind of general, you know, trying to get some radio interviews and some local press, and we did that as well. But I think Facebook and the email it did really work well for us. I think because we're very people, you know, we're very community led, and we know we've been working in this area where our project is for 10 years. We've got a good little black book of contacts and networks, so it really did help, you know, be really personable with them. So yeah, definitely recommend those two.
Awesome. And I think that's really true, is that actually they are quite different tools. So sometimes people ask, you know, which one is better? It's not really a case of one being better than the other. They just are used in different ways. So email, for example, as you've said, Julia, it's a really direct way of speaking to people. And often for you to even have their email addresses, it means that there's a connection. They're already pretty invested in what you're doing, or they're at least interested in what you're doing. And we find that the conversion rates in terms of how sort of many pledges you get from them, or what percentage of people go on to make a pledge, is actually pretty high for email. Now, that does of course mean that it's a finite list with email. You either have their email address or you don't, okay? Of course, you can do some stuff to try and gather some more email addresses, but essentially that's the block of people that you have access to. That, of course, is very different to social media. And again, I'm going to specifically talk about Facebook here. With Facebook, you, in theory, have access to millions and millions of people around the world. You're not limited by just the people that you know, which I think is a really good point that Julia made earlier as well. Actually, as long as you keep pumping content into social media, there's no limit. It's infinite, if you like. It's the opposite of finite in terms of the people that you can potentially reach. So thinking about Facebook really specifically, this is one of the areas where we get a lot of questions and a lot of people looking for advice on. We're going to go over to Bertie, who's going to give us a little bit of an introduction as to what makes a great post on Facebook, before going on and talking about some cool little features that you may or may not already know about Facebook.
Thanks, Emily. So yes, I think it's really important when it comes to coming up with a strategy for your social media, is that you've made a rough plan beforehand. So you've started collecting different bits of content or ideas for activations or stories that you could share once you're live. To kind of the aim of the game is to keep that audience warm to what you're doing and interested, rather than switch off as soon as they see one of your posts because it's so boring. And for that, the first rule of crowdfunding, we say that you really should try and diversify your messaging more than hi there, we're crowdfunding, because you're all brilliant organizations with fantastic products or businesses who have a lot to say for themselves. And so don't be afraid to really share that interest and story behind what you're doing. And like very much what Julia did, and think about those different groups within your network map and what they would be interested in hearing about, and make sure you've got something in there for everyone. And in those posts, try and make them as colourful as possible, so they're as interesting and eye-catching as possible. So if anyone scans through your page, they can see lots of different mediums used, and that you're being versatile in your approach, like using video, Facebook Live, or constructing vignettes to share. But of course, when you're talking about all of these fantastic things that are happening behind the scenes, or giving an update about an interesting purge that's happened, or releasing a new reward, make sure that you're always funneling your audience towards your page in the right direction. So include a call to action. What do you want them to do? What is the reason behind the post? So make sure that you've got the link to your crowdfunder page, at least on that post, because it's always such a shame to see when the post that makes it, hundreds of shares, hundreds of likes, but there's no link to your page, and therefore it doesn't convert well. And that's the exciting opportunity, really, is to engage with all these different people. And as Sammy says, expand your audience to the realms of groups that otherwise you would have no ability to contact. So finally, yeah, the fifth point really is just mix it up and make sure that it's varied and interesting, so that whenever you're saying something, it's for a reason. You're not kind of splurging material for the sake of it, and that you're being kind of direct in your approach and what you want those posts to achieve.
Awesome, thanks Bertie. And I think again, there's some really good points in there. Making sure that actually spend some time testing, doing some different stuff, have some fun. It's not supposed to be all dreary and dull. Before you launch your project, try doing a few different posts, try putting some pictures, maybe take the plunge and do a Facebook Live, test out what different kind of posts get what reaction, and then you have a bit of a steer as to what might work quite well once you are crowdfunding. So now for the juicy bit. So a few things that you can do on Facebook that you may already know about or you might not. So first one is a pretty basic one, which most people know about, but something that works really well for crowdfunding is that you can actually tag people, friends of yours, as well as groups and organizations in your posts. So to do that, you have to just type the @ symbol, and then you start typing the person's name, and you can click on the person that you want to tag. What that then means for them is that they get that little notification that you can see there on the other side of the screen, telling them that they've been tagged in a post. It doesn't tell them what they've been tagged in or in what respect, so they have to click on it, they have to look at the post, engage with it, in order to see what this notification is all about. So it's a great way, if you want to target specific people and make sure that they know about it, a great way to make sure it's on their radar. So next, and this is something which you can do before launching, as well as once you're already live, you can actually use Facebook to try and find little online communities of people that might be relevant to your project. So I've used the example that is the kind of most obvious example to me, of course, being that we are based down here in Newquay, and I am, of course, a woman, is I've searched for surf women. So I'm looking for women who surf, let's say. I just type that into the search bar on Facebook, and it already gives me a huge range of different things that I might want to look at where I can find people. So I can see there's a local surf club, there's a couple there, there's some groups, and I can see they've got, a few members, and again, I can join those groups. And then beneath there, I've actually got events. So I can see people who have said that they're interested or going to events that might be relevant to my project, and I can kind of see who they are. I can maybe even go to that event and find out what's kind of going on in that arena that I'm interested in. If you haven't already, I would absolutely recommend setting up a Facebook page for your project or for your organisation or business. It doesn't need to be specific for your crowdfund. But having a page gives you so many more options on Facebook. It's free, it's super, super easy, and it doesn't take very much time at all. You can start with just a basic page and then spend some time adding some more bits and bobs to it as you go through the phase of kind of setting up and running your project. So once you have got a page for your project, for your organisation or business, you get this really cool little colourful block of 8 different things that you can do from your page. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of them here. So sharing a photo or video, of course, is something that you can already do as an individual, but you can do some cool stuff from a page, like creating a photo carousel. You might have seen those when you're scrolling through the feed. It's where they have more than one picture and you can click past them and you see almost sort of a stream of pictures. And what you can actually do with that stream is direct people straight to one link. And of course, that should be your crowdfunder URL link. So you can direct people straight there. You can also create an event from your page and invite everyone who likes your page along to it. Like, for example, your launch event, like Julia was mentioning earlier, or even just if you're not having a launch event, almost a virtual launch for when your crowdfunder page is launching, or for when it closes. You can use it for all those different types of things, and it's a really great way to, again, get that engagement. If you're feeling really brave, you can see in the top right-hand corner, live video. People normally sort of gasp and hide and are really scared of doing these live videos. Of course, it's something that we do quite regularly at Crowdfunder, doing these live broadcasts. I'd say exactly as Julia advises, give them a whirl, have a go. If you don't like it, you can always delete it. Particularly if you're in your physical space or you're with people who are involved in the project or might benefit from the project, jump on and do a live video and see how it goes. It's not as scary as you think once it's done, I promise. Now, a couple of things finally that again are more specific to if you have a page. Boosting. A lot of people don't boost or not really sure how to boost. They're a little bit kind of scared about it. So we've got an example here of a local jewellery brand actually called Catch the Sunrise. And we've looked at a post, an organic post that they've just put up on their page. So they've just put up a couple of pictures and a bit of text. And you can see this little blue button comes up that says Boost Post. This is what happens when you click it, okay? First of all, it's going to ask you to select which audience you'd like to target. So you can be quite broad. You can put in location like the whole of the United Kingdom, or you can be very specific. You could just put in London or Manchester or Edinburgh or Newquay if you wanted to. You can pick an age range, and again, that can be as big or small as you like. And you can select gender, or you can leave it to both. What you can also do in choosing that targeted audience is you can actually include some interests that you would like to target, or even occupations that you'd like to target. So if we wanted to target people who like surfing, or people who like the arts, or like rock music, whatever that might be, you can actually target those people specifically through there too. The other two options you can see underneath is to boost that post to people who like your page or people and their friends. That option doesn't really work so well unless you've already got a pretty big following. So if you're still in the hundreds rather than the thousands, I'd stick to the targeted boost. You then get to set your budget and how long you'd like to run the boost for. You have to have a minimum of £1 a day, but that is the minimum. It's super cheap. So if you just wanted to boost your post for a week, 7 days, you could set a budget of £7, and that is the most you will spend. And Facebook will only charge you for the interaction that the post actually gets, the actual views that the post gets. So you set your budget, let's say £1 a day for 7 days. At the end of the 7 days, you'll get your invoice and it will tell you how much has been spent, how many people have seen your post. And then you can decide, was it worth it? Was it a good spend of money? Do I want to do it again? Do I want to do a different post? Do make sure with Facebook Boost, this is a little top tip, that your images, if you have any images, and of course we recommend that you do, that they don't have too much text in. Basically, Facebook's ad filters won't let you put the ad live, won't let you do the boost if there's too much text in that image. So keep an eye on that. Finally, this is something that not that many people know about. This is something called invite to like. Okay, so if you have a page and you put up a post, we've got another post from Catch the Sunrise here. If people come along and they like your post, you can see down there, we've got the interactions. You can see some of the thumbs up and the hearts. If you, as the person who runs that page, clicks on that list of people, it shows you all of the people who have reacted to that post. And you can see down there at the bottom, it tells you if they don't already like your page. You can then click that invite button and they get a notification. And more often than not, they'll actually go on and like your page. So that's a fantastic way of building that audience on your page so that they'll see your next post and the one after and the event you do next and your Facebook Live. It's bringing them into your community. So that is a really cool thing that you can do through Facebook as well. Okay, so what to do next? If you've already done all of the stuff from the first 2 sessions, you're ready to pick a launch date. Get a calendar out, draw a circle around it. Let's pick a date, let's stick to it. Second of all, get your email address book together. So if you know that you have emails all over the shop, have a go at getting them all together, maybe putting them all in a list. We've got lots of advice in our downloadable PDFs about things, the way of making the best of email. You can use tools like MailChimp, for example, that makes it super, super easy. And finally, to really drill home the point, set up a Facebook page. It's really worth it. You have so many more options and so many things that you can do with your Facebook page, as well as doing promotion from your personal Facebook profile. It's absolutely worth it. We'd really like to make your idea happen. So I hope that you have found these sessions useful and that you have followed along all of the advice. And of course, we do value any and all feedback and any and all comments. And I'll be getting in touch with everyone who originally signed up to these through Eventbrite to get some feedback and comments. So do look out for that note. If you have any questions or there's anything that you need a hand with, you can get in touch with us via Twitter. We're at Crowdfunder UK. You can, of course, leave a comment on YouTube, and we do welcome you to do that. Or you can pop us an email via the usual channels on the website. So thanks so much to Bertie for joining us today, and of course to Julia as well from the Sustainable Studio.
Brilliant, thank you.
Cheers, guys. So
do make sure that you follow all the advice, and hopefully we'll look forward to seeing you live in Crowdfunding or Crowdfunder soon. Thanks, bye-bye.